do a video called You Are Not Weak, because I think if you've grown up with any generational trauma, which is the vast majority of people, or you're a male, or you're a female, or you're any sort of person, and you've got some vulnerability of some form, or whatever, you will have insecurities, and basically throughout the ego there's this feeling that you have to compensate for your ego issues. And some people do that by trying to deflect the situation on someone else. Some people do it by overcompensating, and some people do it by people pleasing, or like fitting into a hierarchy type thing. So people try and overcome vulnerability in different ways. But everyone feels vulnerability, but it's like, don't let someone else break you down because they're too insecure with themselves and their own situation and scenario. Because there's one sense, and I'm definitely a believer of, just let the haters hate, because if they're hating on you, then they hate themselves and they hate their own environment. It's no point trying to bite back at people. It's a way of being in, like, the Quran and the Muslims. But the fact is, if people are like you don't need to feel weak. Like, I think if you feel like you're weak, you will put on this massive armor and this over armor of like protection. And it's taken me so long to break down the protection and armor that I built for no good fucking reason, for generational trauma that I had taken on through my peers at school when I got bullied, and they had their own problems, let's just say that for the least, and generational trauma that I had internalized and tried to be something that I wasn't. Felt I had to be stronger or more emotionally resilient when I hadn't learned the tools to be emotionally resilient, and therefore would use bad coping mechanisms. And that's a form of over armor and extreme armor to compensate. And it's taken me, as I say, a long time to break down that armor for what it is. And it's a lot that goes into that. And there's some maintenance that goes with that to a level, you have to always remind yourself, not always on a conscious level, but the fact of, I can be vulnerable and I can be in my peace and power without having to be this overly superior being. And you get some insecure people and misled people that will try and direct you and sabotage you to a place of being vulnerable and being insecure about yourself. And that is not okay. And that is not acceptable. And also, the purpose of them doing that will be because they are one of the people that either finds it entertaining to put other people down, or they feel like it's going to raise them up in their social circle to put other people down. But please, you are not weak. You are not any more vulnerable than the next person. And if someone's trying to make you feel vulnerable, it's coming from a place of vulnerability, I promise you, within themselves. And so please refrain from building up armor in order to compensate for other people's lack of ability to regulate themselves and lack of ability to take accountability for themselves, because it's not okay. And I don't care how old you are, how successful you are, how unsuccessful you are. If you're living on the street eating shit off the floor all night, it doesn't bother me. You don't get to put me down. You don't get to try and make me feel vulnerable, because that is not okay with me, and I do not accept that. And as I've put before, I do not receive that. I do not receive that. Okay? And so, moving swiftly on, it's just important because I've done a lot of mental health related topics where I've learned things through therapy and life and holistically and such to maintain well-being overall. And part of that comes with a healthy psychology. and healthy pathology. And to have this mindset of internalized abuse and internalized projection from narcissistic people that have nothing better to do than to put other people down is a really detrimental, damaging thing. They won't think twice about doing, and that someone who's uneducated about this toxic habit of other people will think nothing of internalizing that, and that will break down their own psychology, because all of the effort they need to put towards things like joy and experiencing and managing their own stresses that come with the inevitable aspects of life will not be able to be managed, because all of their mental mindset and all of their electrical capacity is going towards running this neuropathology built in by some loser case that's got nothing better to do than to try and sabotage other people for what the universe will then perceive as a win for them. How is that functional? We all need to take accountability for our own karma and for our own experiences, whether that means through being a bit humiliated because you're making yourself look like a loser by trying to do that. That's not for someone else to try and compensate for your problems. I'm sorry, that doesn't work. That doesn't work universally. It's not the answer. And it's not for someone to take on that and assume that that is okay, because it's not. And it really touches a nerve for me, to be honest, as I say, because I've walked around for so long in the past with this massive amount of armour on, to the point of wanting to physically gain weight, because I was so insecure with myself. I felt that I needed that extra physical armour to protect my own emotional well-being. And how unhealthy is that? Then you're getting to the point of actually physically making yourself unwell and unhealthy because of someone else's lack of self-awareness and lack of self-regulation and lack of manners. It's not okay. It's never going to be okay. And luckily the younger generations are more aware of it. They're more in tune with it. The way the school system is run these days is healthier, I believe, personally. I can't say for everywhere that I've gone. I don't know every experience and every school dynamic. I can't say, but I do think the culture is not where they rule a child for next to no reason these days. There's obviously a lot more child protection and things like that involved. And unfortunately, yeah, it's not okay. There's not going to be ever a time where it is okay. And armour, as any person, because armour comes in many forms. Some people's armour is to sit at home and smoke crack all night. And some people's armour is to go and bloody do something else that's going to be detrimental and dangerous for themselves, to burn off that energy that they've built up through anxiety of being in hard situations. But it doesn't matter what the fuck situation you're in, because I'm not you and I'm not God. So that's not my responsibility. Besides being a fucking citizen of the fucking planet. But besides that, no. And I don't agree with making someone else create armour for their own psychological well-being because of someone else's inability to regulate themselves and their inability to have self-awareness of the effects they have on other people. I don't agree with that, and I won't stand for it, and I won't accept that, and I do not accept that. And it's one thing being a child and being beaten, basically, not physically, but emotionally and verbally beaten to that place. But it's another thing to in adulthood, as you're a healed person walking around with no wounds, or as little wounds as you can hope to have, to experience that and assume it's okay. I'm not talking about where people go off and say the wrong thing, or people handle things in a heavy way because a heavy-handed way is what's needed in that situation. That's not what I'm talking about. That is not abuse. But it is abuse to try and coerce someone and beat them psychologically into creating armour because they feel like they're in fight or flight mode for some reason. That does not equate to what's right and just as per that situation and what they deserve in terms of what they're doing by that day. And it's not okay. And I hope that anyone, because at the end of the day, if you curse someone, you'll be cursed yourself. And also, people tend to get bad karma back like 10 times. So I hope they feel very badly about themselves, whoever's triggered me into this video, because it's not okay to psychologically abuse someone. And it's not okay to make them try and put on some armour, because we all have armour in our own different ways. If you haven't taken yours off yet and sorted your life out, that's not my problem. But I have, so you don't get to interfere with that, and you don't get to ruin my progress there.